Ah, the Lion of the tribe of Judah prevails, and he reigns. The Lamb reigns on high. Glory to his name. Guys, we are going to look at some amazing stuff. I hope you get it. This is amazing revelation. We're talking about the Lamb who reigns 1,260 days. Guys, I hope you get this. I hope you take heed. I hope you watch this more than once if you don't understand. Guys, this is amazing stuff. So let's get right into it. If you haven't watched it already, watch the other video on Esther. It shows us the king reigns 1,260 days. And so that's what we're going to talk about, guys. It's the Alpha and Omega that sits upon the throne, reigning on the house of David. Glory to his name. So, God, we're going to go into the scriptures. We're going to look at this, and we're going to give all glory and praise to his name because it has happened. It is now. He reigns now, supreme now. And we will look at this, guys. We will look at this, okay? So now the first thing we want to look at is Revelation. It says the Lamb in the midst of the throne. So the Lamb is in the midst of the throne then, okay? Now what that is symbolically the Lamb is there. He's set in the throne. He's set. He's set, guys. He sits. He's reigning. And this has happened. So let's look at the scriptures, guys. Let's get into it. I got a bunch of scriptures to go over with you, okay? Now, again, I need you to follow me here. And stay with me on the scriptures. No, we always do everything by the scriptures here. But the first one is Daniel chapter 7. Okay, now in Daniel chapter 7, this is where we're going to start with, guys. I beheld till the thrones were cast down. Now, really, the word in Hebrew there is thrones were set. So the thrones are set, and the Ancient of Days did sit. This is what I'm saying. The Alpha and Omega, the Lord Jesus, is the Ancient of Days. And he did sit, whose garment was white like snow, and his hair was like pure wool, and his throne was a fiery flame, and the wheels of burning fire. That's exactly what we see, guys, in Revelation chapter 1, right? So in the description, in Revelation 1, I did see the voice that spake with me. In turn, I saw seven golden, in the midst of the seven golden candlesticks was one like the Son of Man, clothed with the garment down the foot, and his head and hairs were white like wool as snow, and his eyes were a flaming fire. This is the same person, guys. The Alpha and Omega is the Ancient of Days, and he's sitting on the throne of David. Okay? Now, some of you, if you're struggling with what I'm saying, I've gone over this in another video, but let me go over the interpretation real quick. Now, the reason they believe the Ancient of Days is the Father is because of verse 13 of Daniel 7. And I saw the night visions and beheld one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven and came to the Ancient of Days. Well, this sounds like the Lord Jesus coming to the Father. And they brought near before him, and there was given to him dominion and glory and a kingdom, and all the people and nations and language should serve, and his dominion was an everlasting dominion, which should not pass. Well, this sounds like the Lord Jesus, right? Well, it is in a sense, but it's also the ecclesia. It's the church. So when we go to Revelation 12, and I have to go through all this because I know you guys some of you are new to this channel, and you don't know all these things I've shared over and over. But in Revelation 12, we found the woman clothed with the sun, and she brought forth a man-child who was to rule the nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up to God and to his throne. Well, this man-child is the people that the woman gives birth to. So that's the Son of Man that you see in Daniel chapter 7, okay? So the Ancient of Days is not the Father. It's the Alpha and Omega, whose hair is white like wool. Oh, glory to his name. And he did sit. The Father never sat. The Father was. The Father sat before anything came into being, guys. The Ancient of Days is the Alpha and Omega. Now let's look at him. Let's look at the scriptures on him, guys. This is just amazing stuff. I'm so excited about this. I know it's just like, oh, whatever, Leland. I don't care. He reigns. And we will reign with him. And the Lord reigns. This is Psalm 99, verse 1. The Lord reigns. Let the people tremble. He sits between the cherubim. Let the earth be moved. The Lord is great in Zion. He is high above the people. Let them praise his great and terrible name, for he is holy. So here you have it. The Lord is reigning. and he sits between the cherubim. He sits, guys. And that's what we're going to look at, all the scriptures that talk about this moment in time when he sits. Glory to his name. Okay, let's also go to Psalm 97. And then we have something very similar. The Lord reigns. Let the earth rejoice, and let the multitude of isles be glad. Clouds and darkness are round about him. Righteousness and judgment are the habitation of his throne. A fire goes before him and burns up his enemies. Now again, this description is the Lord reigning, guys. And this is the fiery stream that Daniel sees, right? So Daniel saw this, and he saw the wheels. Now when you see the cherubim in the wheels, that's an orientation of the Lord's throne that moves, okay? And we find that in Ezekiel chapter 1. I encourage you to read all these things. I'm getting all these scriptures in, guys. I have a lot to cover. Ezekiel 1:26, and above the firmament was over the heads of the likeness of a throne, and the appearance of a sapphire stone. Upon the appearance of the throne was the likeness of the appearance of man above it. So he's sitting on the throne. This is the Lord Jesus, the Alpha and Omega, sitting on the throne. Now, this happens in time, and I believe it's already happened, okay? Now, let's also look at some other verses about this. This is amazing. Isaiah 16, verse 5. In mercy shall the throne be established. He shall sit upon it in truth in the tabernacle of David, judging, seeking judgment, and hasting righteousness. He's sitting, guys. It's already happened. Okay? Now, the other thing I want to mention is that we find out from Esther that the king reigned 3 years. And then there was a feast 180 days. So you have a period of time of 3.5 years, right? Now, this is important you get this. You understand this. This is exactly what it talked about in Daniel chapter 9, okay? Verse 26, and after 62 weeks, or 62 weeks, the Messiah shall be cut off. Not for himself, and the people of the prince shall come and destroy the city and the sanctuary. And the end thereof shall be with a flood, unto the end desolations determined. Now we know some of this description happened in 70 A.D., but the flood did not, okay? So some happened then, some didn't. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. Okay, that's 1 week is a week of years, 7 years. In the midst of the week he shall cause, and he shall confirm the covenant for 1 minute. In the midst of the week he shall call the sacrifice and oblation to cease. Now again, that happened in 70 A.D. The sacrifices ceased, okay? But it's also a future fulfillment as well, because they talk about the abomination that makes desolate. But what you have here is you have the Messiah being cut off in the midst of a 7-year period. So we know Jesus' public ministry on the earth was 3.5 years, right? And then he was cut off, not for himself. So we know that that was 3.5 years. I'm telling you about the other 3.5 years. It's happening now. We're in it. Glory to his name. Okay? So in the midst of the week, he was cut off. Then that 3.5-year period, the next section of it is waiting for the time for the Lamb to sit. And that's happened, guys. That's happened. That's what I'm trying to tell you. So what we have, guys, is in the throne of heaven, we have these scenes of the Lamb reigning, of him reigning supreme, and having these scenes before the throne of declaring all his order of heaven, of the angels, of the army, and everything, right? And we can find about this in Jeremiah 17, verse 25. And there shall enter into the gates of the city kings, princes, sitting on the throne of David. Now, there's lots of thrones. We know there's the elders, there's the chief porters, there's the church angels, there's the 7 spirits of God. They're all sitting upon thrones, riding in chariots and on horses. So we see the horse riders, the 4 spirits of the heavens. In Zechariah 6, they're on chariots. Glory to his name. And they and their princes and the men of Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem in this city shall remain forever. Guys, this is heaven. And they shall come from the cities of Judah and the places of Jerusalem, from the land of Benjamin, from the plain and from the mountains. You see, I'm in the mountains. I'm about 2,800 square feet above sea level. And from the south, bringing offerings, sacrifices, meat offerings, incense, bringing sacrifice of praise unto the house of the Lord. Guys, the whole book of Revelation of what the angels are doing are sacrifices, trumpets blowing, seals, bowls being poured out. These are all sacrifices. All this has happened. But what happens is he has this celebration that takes place. The celebration of the army, the celebration and recognition of thrones of the work that the angels have done. They've done work and they're being recognized and they're being honored. And it happens for 3.5 years. Now, there's no indication of anything on the earth actually being a sign of when this will happen. That's why I'm not necessarily saying when it is, because I don't know. But again, Jeremiah 22:2, enter in the gates of the house of the king, sitting on the throne of David, riding in chariots and horses, he and his servants and his people. So this is amazing, guys. The saints in heaven, the great multitude of angels have all been set. They're all in order. And this should concern you. This should concern you guys for 2 reasons. I found this very exciting. I also found this very troubling. There's many people, myself included, have been caught into heaven, caught before the courts, and shown many things. But this event, to my recollection, I don't really know anyone that's described this scene, okay? So that's very concerning because this has happened, guys. The other thing that's concerning is in the story of Esther, guys, the story is in the 7th day, at the end of the 3.5 years, Esther is commanded to come before the king, right? And she refuses the king's command. So then what happens is she refuses to come. Then the king is angry. That's the seals. That's the horse riders. And then he asks for a new queen. They said, what should we do? We'll bring out a new queen. And then we have Esther. So guys, what that means, that story prophetically means that none of us have answered the king's command. None of us have answered the time of his calling. So don't disparage anyone else. Don't think you're super spiritual or anything like that. You didn't accept the king's command either. So now what has to happen is a new queen is raised up. This is Esther. So that's what God is doing. He's raising up a remnant. He's raising up a people. They're the ones that will be sealed. And then the multitude of those that haven't been sealed and haven't met the king's requirements will go through the judgment and then will have great honor and things then, guys. But the thing that should concern you is that the king in the Ancient of Days is the Alpha and Omega, and he did sit, and you didn't know about this. That should concern you because, guys, that means you're blind and ignorant of what's happening prophetically, myself included. And I've given everything I have for this information. I find it a great honor. But I also find it very troubling that this has happened and I didn't know, okay? I also find it troubling that I also didn't answer the Lord's command, okay? So now I want to be ready. I want to be prepared for his coming, okay? Now, guys, what I want to do as I wrap this up, I want to show you, I'm going to do a series on this because I have so much information to share of the order of heaven and what the different angels that are recognized in their roles and what they're doing, even now in the courts of heaven. But I want to show it to you the way I did in the previous video, okay? So when we, let's see if I can get a good view of this in the camera for you guys to see. So when I did this before, guys, you know, we went through each of the in the cycle here. So basically what we're saying is that the Alpha and Omega sits right here, and he sits on the cherubim, on the throne of the cherubim, okay? That's right here. Then you have 1 year, 2 year, 3 year of the king reigning. We find that in Esther. And then we have the final portion, 180 days here, okay? So what we're saying is that right here he sits. Now remember, in Revelation, John says, I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day, and he saw the Son of Man standing. So that's the Sabbath. That's 7. So that's before this. So Revelation chapter 1 is before this. Then what happens is he sits, and when he sits, the books are open. Well, what books? Well, there's lots, but some of them are Revelation 2 and 3. So then you see the 7 churches. And then you have the 7 church angels. Now you can find them in Zechariah chapter 6, okay? In Zechariah chapter 6, and it talks about Joshua sitting on the throne. This is amazing, guys. So here you have it. This is when it starts. It goes through a 3.5-year period. This is when Esther doesn't answer the king's command. The king's wrath is here, and so that's the horse riders. Then you have the 5th seal, and then the 6th seal is here, and then you have Esther's preparation. Again, hers is also 6 months, 180 days of oil of myrrh, and also sweet odors. So that is the preparation Esther goes through, and we find out about that in Song of Solomon, okay? But guys, this is exactly, now here, I don't have it on here, but this would be the Lord and his 4 cherubim. And in Song of Solomon 3:7, it talks about his 60 valiant men. So you got the Lord, his cherubim, you got the church angels, seraphim, 4 spirits of the heavens, the 7 chief porters, the 7 spirits of God, the 4 living creatures, the 24 elders, and then those added up come up to the 60 valiant men. So there you have it. So guys, this is amazing information. I hope that you give praise and honor and glory to his name, that you would live in such a time as this to see the Lamb sitting, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And I bless you guys. And again, there's so much I have to share in this. I have to go through it quickly to keep it short, but I'm going to do a series on it, and I'm going to keep sharing, okay? So God bless you guys, and kiss the sun before it's too late.